Gabby, and this is a Gift of Gabbie, and today we're going to be making my pork shoulder tacos. My family absolutely loves these. They're totally delicious, and I use my own dry spice rub that I've made with Valrhona cocoa powder, 3 different types of chili, salt, pepper, garlic, onion, cumin, and coriander. I like to start with a boneless, skinless pork shoulder. I put the fat cap down in my pressure cooker. I'm going to start by sauteing it. So we're going to get this bad boy, rubbed up with the dry rub. I'm going to start with the dry rub, and then I'm going to add more salt because there really isn't that much salt in it. Now, you might be a little intimidated by the fact that there's cocoa powder in this, but I promise you it doesn't taste like chocolate. It actually gives it this really deep, rich mole flavor, and then the chilies are pretty spicy. So at the final product, once the pork fat melts away in the pressure cooker, is something that's incredibly rich and absolutely addicting. I'm trying to get dry rub into every little nook and cranny. And if you wanted to, you could score this to get it deeper. And if you're using a bone-in pork butt, or pork shoulder, I actually would score it around the bone so that it cooks closer to the bone, whereas this is boneless. So I'm just gonna make it easy on myself and keep it as is. Now I've got the rub on it, and I'm going to add some salt. And I kind of want to press that salt in. This is Himalayan pink salt, which is something that I like to use because it's a naturally occurring, great tasting salt. All salt's naturally occurring, but not all salts are created equal. I'm going to take this pork shoulder, and you should remember which side is the fat cap, because you're going to want to put that up. If you can remember, after it's been covered in dry rub. We're going to get that in there. Hear that sizzle? The saute function on the Instant Pot is one of my favorite things. I'm going to put an onion in there. Going to put some peppers in there, chilies, and we're going to let this start to brown up. I'm going to make sure that there's maximum contact with the pork shoulder on the bottom, and after a little while, we're going to flip it, and then we're going to set it on pressure for about 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and then we're going to have perfectly tender pork shoulder tacos. I really want to get some of these aromatics down in there, and I'd kind of like to get a little bit of brown all the way around, so I'm going to mess with it for a little bit. And you can see that this will start crisping up really nicely. That's the nice thing about a dry rub. And I'm going to add just a little more salt to it because it's a really big hunk of meat, and it's hard for salt to get all the way in there. And I am going to change to manual, high pressure, and I'm going to do it for 90 minutes. I'm going to let it naturally release. I'm not going to do a manual release. So it's going to continue to cook while the pressure is releasing. It's a slower release, and it could take up to 30 minutes. It could also take up to 10 minutes for this to come up to pressure. And then when it's done, I'm going to check it, and if I think that it needs more, I'm going to give it about 20 more minutes. And that should be enough between coming back up to pressure and releasing for it to be the perfectly tender pork shoulder that I'm looking for. So now we're making some tortillas, and I am going to use masa harina. I like to use a high quality masa harina, and I use a steel tortilla press. I like this because I like the heavy feeling of the tortilla press. Of course, you can use wood, but I don't like that as much. Some people might use saran wrap, but I think the plastic baggie is far more durable, and it stands up to the repeated opening and closing of the tortilla press. I cut off the top, and then I cut down the sides, and it makes a great little pocket in which to put the masa. I am now making my tortillas, This is going to be 2 cups of masa harina. Like I said, I like to use a really high quality, organic, non-GMO masa harina. And I'm going to add a pinch of my Himalayan pink sea salt. I wish you could smell the tacos in here right now. This room already smells amazing. I'm mixing the salt into my masa harina, and then I'm going to measure out, because it's between 1.5 and 2 cups of water, and this is hot water. And I'm going to do the first cup, and this one just kind of like dump it in because we need all this for sure. See how pretty it looks? And it almost immediately starts smelling like tortillas once the hot water hits it. My tacos are sizzling away at pressure. This is half a cup now. Believe me, it might look a little wet, but it's gonna get absorbed right up. And eventually I'm gonna get in there and start kneading it. I just don't want it to be too wet and sticky when I start. I let this masa harina with the water combined rest for a little bit. Now I'm rolling basically a golf ball. I don't know, I don't play golf. This looks like a golf ball though, right? And I'm putting it in the center of my press. I'm laying this down, and then a gentle press down. Make sure it's a gentle press down. Then I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna press it again, because it presses a little bit harder on the inside and a little bit lighter on the outside. Now, I have this beautiful tortilla with these rustic edges, and it comes right out, and I have a hot griddle right here, and I'm just gonna flip it onto the griddle, and you hear the sizzle. After about 30 to 45 seconds, once you might start to see little bubbles forming, you can flip it. It's nice if you get a little brown on there, but it's really to your preference, because I'm going to put these in here with other tortillas, and they're gonna continue to kind of steam and cook. They can also be reheated if need be, but this, once they're together and in a cloth like this, they stay pretty warm. You can even put them at a low temperature in your oven to keep them warm, but this traps the steam and keeps them from drying out. You know, your tortillas are perfect when they're pliable. You can almost fold them completely before they start to break. I like mine a little thicker, and pretty perfect. This is exactly the way you want it to taste. Soft, yummy, and it's gonna be the perfect vehicle for those pork tacos. Our pork shoulder is done, and the pot is still at pressure, so I'm going to do a steam release, which is dangerous but super fun. You're going to see a huge billow of steam, and I am going to use this for safety. And there you go. Pretty fun. Now we wait and we see just how well the pork turned out. Oh my goodness. This is just gonna flake right off, and I'm gonna be able to put it onto the plate just like that. It is delicious. One of the other things that I like to do is I like to remove all the pork and then reduce down in saute mode this wonderful sauce that's in here, and then I can return the pork to it, and you get all that flavor even more built in to the dish. Now, if this isn't what you're interested in, you can eat it as is with onion and cilantro, or like I said, you can return it back to the sauce for a different style pork. Right now, it could almost be more like carnitas, even though it has that dry rub. It all has spice on it, puppy. It all has spice, or I would give you some. I would. I am going to click this onto saute now, and I am going to simmer down this sauce so it gets really nice and thick, and it's got like a lot of that broth from the pork shoulder, and all of the spice that fell off it is in there. It's beeping because it's starting to saute. And once it starts to thicken, I'm going to return the pork to it just to kind of douse it in the yumminess. And we're gonna do a wet pork. We're gonna do it in the sauces, the juices, instead of like a more carnitas style where it's drier. I think that this is gonna be especially tasty for today because it just seems like a good day for a super saucy pork taco. Sometimes I add a little bit of Coca-Cola, like a Mexican Coke or like a real sugar Coke, like cola, like whatever brand that has real sugar, because I think it adds a nice sweetness to this. I don't have any of that in house right now. We rarely have pop in the house, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of honey to this for a touch of sweetness, and it balances out all those chilies and like the onion and, you know, the chipotle that's in there so nicely. And then the honey also like helps to thicken up the sauce and gives it that like nice glaze, so it'll really coat the pork. I think that this sauce is thick enough. It's coating the back of the spoon. It's not like super thickly coating the back of the spoon, but you don't want it to be like ketchup. And we want there to be enough sauce to coat all the meat. So I am going to return the meat to this sauce. And then it's pretty close to being ready to be served, because we don't want to like totally overcook this pork so that it's just, you know, falling apart mush. You still want there to be a little bit of bite to it, even though you can see it's really quite tender. After all this gets back in there, I'm just gonna let it sit for a minute and get happy. I'm gonna toss it all together and let it marinate, you know? So back in go all these wonderful juices that ran off the pork when I pulled it out, because we like to not waste anything. And here we go. Oh my gosh. It's tossing in the sauce and it just looks gorgeous. Maybe even a little ugly delicious, but gorgeous to me. All right, you guys, here is the moment of truth. We're gonna check out the pork. Oh my goodness, they look absolutely delicious. The sauce has coated them and they look ready to go. These tacos are still super warm from being kept in a dish towel, and I am going to build my taco now. I'm searching out for the best pieces, of course, because this taco is for me. And oh, that looks delicious. I'm gonna go down to the bottom and get a super juicy piece. I'm gonna top it with some white onion, some cilantro, and there you go. Tacos a la Gabbie. Does it taste as delicious as it looks? Mm-hmm. It's amazing. These tacos are the best. You have to try this recipe.